I'd like to talk about some of the miracles of God that have been in my life, and I'm just going to talk about some different experiences, and yeah, I'll be making more videos. I'm working on a series of videos that are the tactics of Satan, and some other videos of visions that Jesus gave me as a child, and some other things. So yeah, I just thought I would talk about this today just to give Jesus more glory. I'm gonna find a place to sit where it's out of the sun, even though the sun's beautiful. You guys want to see these two birds real quick? Oh, look at them. Pigeons. But I love pigeons. Like, I know most people are like bothered by them, but I love pigeons. God made them for a purpose. Anyways, okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about miracles of God in my life, okay? And I want to start by, I wrote some notes. There's just so many, I can't, there's just so many. Okay, first of all, Jesus came to me in my mother's womb, and he basically told me that I would be born for a purpose, and that he was sending me here to be his voice. And I remember even pleading with God, not about sending me for him, but because I was scared about the world, because he told me the world would reject me for the most part, and that it wouldn't be easy, but if I continued to cry out to him, then he would help me, and he wouldn't forsake me, okay? He told me this as a baby before I was born. Okay, so basically, first miracle of God. Well, that's a miracle, okay? That I was communicating with God before I was even out of my mother's womb. The next miracle was I was born with the cord wrapped around my neck, and Jesus showed me that the devil was trying to take me out, and obviously it wasn't part of God's plan, so I'm still here. And so yeah, they had a minute to get me out, and they did. They got me out, thankfully. And yeah, I'm still here. Okay, so another one I wanted to talk about was how Jesus showed me his hands. He spoke to me. I made a video about this like a while back, a long time ago. You guys can go watch it. I was a small child, and Jesus spoke to me, and he said, "Come to me, do not be afraid." And I saw his big hands, and they were like outside the window. I was 3 or 4 at the time, and I was excited but scared at the same time, but I wanted to go jump on his hands. Okay, and then after that, Jesus would just supernaturally communicate things to me. You guys gotta see the way I'm setting this up. It's kind of funny. We got a bowl here. Yeah, no tripod, and a waterproof box. Alright, hey man, it works, right? Okay, it works. Okay, so Jesus then, would supernaturally talk to me, and he let me know that he was my father, and he showed me the battle in spirit that was going on between good and evil for people's souls, and how he would be with me my whole life, okay? So we talked all the time when I was a child, and there were moments where, oh, it was just so deep and intimate and beautiful. Like, I was a baby. I remember crying in a crib, and maybe it was because I woke up from a nap or just wanted to be held, and Jesus would hold me, and he would comfort me, and he would rock me in spirit. I would feel him, and he would say, there, baby Jackie, Daddy's here, and he would do that, and I would fall asleep. And when I would do that, like God, I don't know how to explain it, but God would comfort me by, like, placing his spiritual, like, hand and finger on my lip. So then I would naturally do this as a child, and I would fall asleep doing that because, I just knew that my God was with me, and that he was doing that in spirit to comfort me. It's hard to explain. Oh, just 1 second. Okay, my dogs were getting into my flowers, and I had to stop them. They were gonna eat them. Okay, anyways, yeah, so, Jesus, used that vision where he showed me his hands, and he told me to come to him, like, to prevent me from committing suicide, years and years later. So there's reasons why God gave me certain visions and spoke to me in certain deep, intimate ways, because they would help me later on in life too. And that's really what he taught me. And then there were moments as an infant when I would just feel the demonic oppression around me. Like, I don't know how to explain it, guys. My child mind couldn't sit here and say to you there's demons that are tormenting me and yelling at me and trying to scare me, okay? But if I could speak at that time, that's what I would have been conveying, because that's what I was discerning in spirit. So Jesus, he gave me the knowing of the demonic, the warfare that goes on, you know, between demons and such. So when I, like, for example, I accidentally got locked into a closet when I was like the age of 3 or 4, probably 3, I think it was 3, and it was a dark closet, okay, and I was crying, and I had a diaper on, and I was weeping, and I didn't get heard for maybe an hour or something, and I was soaking wet from just crying and being so scared. And during that time, the reason why I was crying is because Satan was like telling me, like, I'm gonna get you, and, you know, it was just horrible things. But I felt Jesus with me, so I was obviously scared, but I felt God with me, and he told me, hang on, your hope's on the way. Okay, like, I don't know how to explain it, but Jesus was comforting me. But that experience is actually what made me scared of the dark for many years, until Jesus healed me of that fear, because it was the spirit of fear. That's another miracle Jesus healed me of. I used to be afraid of the dark, and I'm not anymore, because Jesus is with me, and he's greater, and I'm just not. I'm not scared of the dark. Okay. Oh, then there was another time when I was 3 or 4 again. I was in my crib, and I don't know how to explain it, but it was as though I had, I was out of my body. Like, this may sound strange to some people, but I was out of my body, and I floated out of the crib and out of the bedroom, and we had like this balcony. That's kind of where our bedroom was by a balcony, but the door was shut at the time, so it's hard to explain. It's like I went through the door. So then I floated over the living room, and I was looking down, and I heard voices, and I heard people talking, and I remember in my heart I was crying out, Mom, Mom, you know, but she didn't hear me, and I saw that she turned around, and she was like walking to the fridge or something. It wasn't that she was responding to me, and Jesus taught me in that moment that he's the one who's going to answer my cries for help. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but he was showing me that he's the one that is in control of my soul. So, like, when my soul leaves this body, God is the one who has full control. And because in that moment, I remember wanting to reach, like, for someone, and when he spoke that into me, because I was, like, floating over the balcony, then he said, I will save you. And then he made me float back over the balconies where I wasn't like hanging over. And then I felt safe, and I felt comforted, because I felt that I was in the love of my God, and I knew that my soul, my eternal soul, was in his hands. He communicated that to me when I was 3 or 4. And I know this sounds like deep wisdom for a child, but you guys, even before then, like before I was even in my mother's womb, Jesus communicated to me that I was a living soul that he put in my mother's womb, and that living soul had knowledge of all things, because I had come out of Jesus. I came out of him, and then he put me in my mom. Okay, he put me in flesh. So it's not too much wisdom for a child. Just like Jesus talks about, there's much wisdom that comes from babes. They speak the oracles of God because they're sensitive to God, and they're with him. Just a sec. Yeah, so then my body floated back into my bedroom, and I felt God's presence really strong, and he was just ministering to my heart in that time about like how strong I would become in him in this generation, you know, in this last generation, and just how he would use me, like he chose me. But anyways, I want to talk more about like just some of the miracles of God in my life just to give him glory and honor, okay? Because he's so beautiful. Okay, so I want to tell you guys about what happened when I was 7 years old. I was picking at some grapevines, okay? It's like the kind that, you know, like have the poles and they have the grapes on them. But there were no, like, it wasn't a fresh plant. It was like old. So there was a lot of just dead plant hanging there, you know? And they were like really tight. Like they were knitted together very tightly. And I was just a kid just sitting underneath, you know, this big cove of dead plants, and I was like picking at them because I love to like pick through sticks, you know, and just in nature and play in nature that way. And all of a sudden, like, I felt this warning to not do it, but I disobeyed the warning, and I know it was God. And I remember saying to myself, what's the big deal? I'm not hurting nothing. I know, like, I didn't always obey his voice, okay, you guys, but I was sensitive to Jesus. But little things like this really taught me to learn his voice. So then what happened was, it was these carpenter bees, and they came out because bees, they like to live in wood and stuff. And the male bees, to my understanding, what I remember being told is that they don't sting. It's the queen bee who does. So they all started flying at me, and there was like 7 or 8 of them just swarming me and chasing me and stinging me at the same time. So to my understanding, it was like these other bees just scaring me off while the queen kept stinging me over and over and over again on my back. And it hurt so bad. It hurt so bad. Anyways, so long story short, I was rushed to the hospital. And they had told me if I had gotten there a little bit later that I probably wouldn't have made it, because I'm allergic to the venom that was in these bee stings. And, you know, we didn't know that at the time. So they told me that next time if I get stung, to immediately go to the hospital, and I should have an EpiPen for it. So anyways, that's one time that Jesus saved my life. And that was a very scary experience for me, because, you know, I was in the hospital, and people were rushing around, and they're like doctors and nurses were getting the things, they had me flipped over, and they were doing things to my back. And I remember crying out to God, and he would tell me, like, he would comfort me, and he would say, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And I learned in that moment why Jesus was trying to warn me, you know. Okay, flash forward. I just want to talk about how as a child, I would get strep throat a lot, and I would just get these random illnesses to where my temperature would rise to like 104, 105, you know, and my parents would have to rush me to the hospital, and they would put me on ice. And sometimes I stayed overnight, sometimes I didn't, but they would just keep me there until my temperature went down. And I would just get these random illnesses, and I remember as a child feeling really bad, you know. I felt like, gosh, I feel like I'm at fault. Why are these things happening to me? And, you know, because it's not like anyone else in the family really got sick that much. I'm sure they did, but I just remember this happening to me a lot, and it does something to a child, you know. And, like, I started to wonder, why is this happening to me so often? And I just felt bad about it. And I remember Jesus communicating to me that it was the devil, that the devil was just trying to, basically, he was trying to destroy me my whole life, but Jesus wouldn't allow him, you know what I mean? Like, and in these moments, it was just affliction that I was going through, because I was God's child, and because I was talking to him, and Satan hated it, and I was growing in knowledge and understanding. And yeah, Satan picks on children. It's so horrible, but he's just been after me my whole life, like, on a different level of what some people go through, because I am following Jesus, because most people aren't. But it's like he chose me, and he knew that I would one day be his voice. So Satan hates that. So he's been trying to take me out my whole life. And also God's allowed these experiences to teach me things about, like, how to help others who go through similar situations, and just how God cares for the suffering, you know, and just to have compassion on those who are suffering. So that's another reason why I went through these things. And then I eventually ended up having my tonsils removed. I had a tonsillectomy, and I haven't had strep throat ever since. And I was like 14 at the time, Yeah. So I really didn't get that many. I don't remember getting any more fevers after that, but yeah, I got really high fevers and just weird illnesses at that time. Oh yeah. Okay. There was this one time when my family and we lived on farmland. We didn't have farm, but we had like some of their old buildings, you know, the barns and stuff like that. And we had this silo, and it was like old, and it was way behind another barn, you know, out in the field that was neglected, and we didn't usually go out there. And my parents would have definitely forbidden me from playing in that area. But again, Jesus taught me his voice, because I was by myself, and I walked in the silo, and I was climbing this ladder to where like parts of it were missing, you guys, and even parts of the wall like were missing. And I remember looking down in it, and I saw like this old muck. I'm sure it was maybe grain at one time, but I got maybe a third of the way up. I don't know, like I got up pretty far. But anyways, I looked in the hole, and I remember Jesus saying, don't take another step up that ladder, stop. And I stopped immediately, and then the devil came in, and then he said, what's God trying to hide from you? You know, I hated how Satan always did that. That's how I got in trouble a lot, because he would always come at me and he would be like, God's trying to hide something from you. That's why he doesn't want you going these places and seeking out these adventures and fun things, because God's trying to hide something from you. And I fell for that a lot as a child, like not a whole lot, but enough to where I learned lessons through it, you know. And that was one time where Jesus said, obey me. And then he gave me a voice. He gave me a vision of me being stuck in the muck and not having anyone to help me. Like I saw this vision of if I went further, I would have fallen in, and my family wouldn't have found me until it was too late. So God gave me that vision, and so immediately I was scared, and I was scared of heights. And Jesus said, I'll give you the strength. And he told me, like, don't look down behind you, just keep your focus on the ladder, because it was such an old ladder and it was breaking apart. So I started to go down the ladder, and thank God he got me out of there. Oh my gosh, man, there are just so many times that he helped me like that as a child, you guys. Like, I was a child who moved around a lot. My parents both worked, so nobody was really there for us after school for most of the time. And so I was like this kid who ran around the neighborhoods, you know, like, wasn't safe, you guys. Not safe at all. I was started doing that around the age of 6. Yeah. And Jesus would teach me things like, don't go over here, don't go over there, you know. And I did get in trouble a lot. I did, because I hung out with some of the bad kids. And not to just blame them, but I did. I had bad influences around me, and I hung out with them, and I got myself in trouble, and I learned lessons. I would just get into mischief sometimes, because I was always seeking for my parents' attention, and sometimes I knew that if I got in trouble, it was getting some form of attention. And I'm not saying that to like put them down or slander them. That's just what a broken heart of a child does, you know, when they need more love and attention and affection. Like, I was so desperate that I would get in trouble sometimes on purpose just to get their attention. Satan would be like, oh, God's hiding something from you, and Jesus would chime in and be like, no, I'm not. I'm trying to protect you. Listen to me. Listen to my voice. It would be wise to listen to me. Obey me, Jackie. And I would feel like that feeling of knowing that I would be in trouble if I didn't obey God. Oh yeah, when I was talking about how Jesus gave me this, when I was talking about how the devil loves to tell people, you know, God's telling you you can't do this because you're missing out on fun. It reminds me of the Lion King, how like Scar was telling Simba, you know, in a deceitful way, like, oh, they're just telling you not to go to the elephant graveyard because you're missing out. There's a lot of cool stuff over there. So, of course, Simba was, like, very intrigued, and he was tempted, and he ended up going, you know, with the other little cub. I forget her name. Is it Nyla? I can't remember her name. And they went to the elephant graveyard, and Jesus, like, just showed me that that's what the devil does. Like, he tries to tempt people into disobeying God, to make them think that God's withholding something great. And it's just not true. Like, Jesus, when he speaks into a person's conscience, it's to protect and warn you, all for your good, you know, all to protect you. And one time, this is actually all my fault, I was around a couple girls, and I had stolen a cigarette from one of my parents at the time, and we went into an alley, And this was in Arizona, mind you, okay? It's Phoenix, Arizona. It's hot. And the grass, if there's any grass, is just like dead. I mean, you set fire to it and that sucker will light up fast, okay? And that's exactly what happened, unfortunately. I was in an alley and I was puffing away on the cigarette, trying to act all cool and everything. I think it was like maybe, how old was I, Jesus? 9? Yeah, I was about 9. And I was trying to act all tough and everything, you know, and then I accidentally dropped part of the cigarette, like the cherry fell. And it was kind of like a fence like this, you guys. The fence just went a blazing fire. I mean, just as soon as I dropped the cigarette, the whole fence was on fire. And I looked, and I started crying and shaking, and I looked over the fence, and I noticed that there was a van sitting right kind of close to it. I would say maybe in 10 feet of it. And then there was a house, you know, and then I saw, like, bikes and a car and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, and it was right next to a canal. So in my child mind, I'm thinking I can put out this fire, you know, if I go get a bucket from the canal, get some water and throw it on there, and I immediately heard Jesus. You know, like, he was, like, not happy, and I felt so grieved in my spirit, I felt so bad, and I didn't know what to do, and then the firemen quickly showed up, and I remember we actually were so scared that I remember lying to the firemen, unfortunately. They said, and I'm sure they caught on, they said, what happened? And I said, a couple boys were on their bikes, and, you know, they were smoking, and they went that way, and they looked at me like I knew. Like, oh man, I can't lie, I'm not good at this lying stuff, Jesus. And then I remember thinking, why did I just lie? Why did I lie like that? And then Jesus told me to go home immediately, so I went home and I told my older brother, who was there at the time. He was like an older teenager, and because right as soon as I started to come up to him, I was crying, you know, and shaking, and then he looked at me and he saw the smoke. It was like a block away. He saw the smoke and he looked up and he looked down at me and he goes, did you do that? And I'm like, it was an accident, I didn't mean to do it, I didn't mean to do it. And I was just crying, and he had to calm me down, and I saw more fire trucks going over there. It was devastating, you guys, but the miracle in that is that nobody was hurt, and Jesus really taught me a big lesson, okay? A big lesson in that, and after that, it was like, I just didn't try and impress kids anymore after that. Like, for the most part, I didn't anyways. It was just one of those moments where I was like, taking the devil's bait, you know, and I wanted to be cool, and I wanted this girl to think that I was like daring and cool, you know? Stupid. Okay, so anyways, the next day I rode my bike through the alley, and come to find out, they put out the fire just in time before it reached the van, or else that could have exploded. But thank God the people weren't home, they were on vacation. That's so like Jesus to do that. Because all night I remember crying in my bed, and I'm like, please God, tell me that those people are safe, please tell me that they're safe. And I was just sincerely crying from a place of repentance, and he had compassion on me, and he felt like, he felt sorry for me. I mean, here I am like this little child, but anyways, I learned a lot of lessons in that one. So, like, one other example is when we were camping, and we had a van parked in front of our camper, and I got in the van, and I remember putting it in gear, and I don't know, like, till this day I can't remember how that even happened. The keys had to have been in the ignition, I'm assuming, but then the van started to roll backwards, you know, and I was like, oh no, and behind us was like a campground full of people and stuff, you know, and I remember crying out to Jesus, and I'm like, Jesus, Jesus! And then I rolled down the window, because it was one of those wind-up, and I rolled down like, Jamie, and I'm calling out for my brother, and he ran as fast as he could, so I started going back, and then he jumped in the van and put his foot on the brake, and he's like, Jackie, don't ever do that again, you know. And I was like, oh, like, I learned so many lessons, you guys, not even joking, but Jesus saved me so many times. As a child, I got into a lot of trouble because I was like this kid that was just running around the neighborhood, not having any type of authority to give me clear direction, especially after my mom and dad divorced. Like, they just weren't there for us. I'm not saying that to be mean or anything, I'm just, you know, this is my testimony. And I would get myself into very, very bad situations. Like, there were times when Jesus saved me from being kidnapped, because he would warn me, like, not to go into a person's certain house, or just how to escape, dangerous situations. Like, there was one time when I was, I'm not going to talk about too much. But I was a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old boy, like, trapped me inside his house, and with a couple friends, like, me and a couple young 10-year-old friends, and he was trying everything, like, he was being gross and talking gross to us and stuff, and I heard Jesus immediately tell me the specific time of when to run out of the house, and we did, all at the same time. So, like, Jesus saved us from so many different situations. Me and my friends, if they followed me, if they took the heed of my word in that moment of what God was saying, then they escaped too. But it's like, things like that happened a lot. Kids from schools, they would bully me and jump me and stuff, but Jesus always protected me. Like, I just learned so much. He would tell me to go a safe route, you know, and he would pour wisdom into me, and I learned how to analyze my surroundings at all times. Like, seriously, if I walk into a restaurant, I can tell you what color a person's shirt is on the left of me and a conversation that's going on the right of me. I'm very, very aware of my surroundings, and I've just always been that way, and I know it's Jesus, you know what I mean? I know it is, because he gives me wisdom to just be aware, because it's wise, okay? And then he would give me wisdom to sit and listen to people when they're talking, like adults around me, or, you know, whatever, just in situations to where there were groups. And I learned a lot by listening, by being quiet and listening. Like, I always had that knowing, you know, that Jesus was like, okay, I'm gonna teach you something from this, so pay attention and just listen. So, like, he helped me so much to escape so many dangerous situations, you guys. It's amazing. It's amazing. God's been with me my whole life. He's so amazing. Okay, what else? Jesus. Oh, yeah. Okay, Jesus gave me this prophetic vision once. I was with my dad, and we went to this garage where they were fixing his car. They were putting tires on or something, and we were waiting. Okay, so we were like inside this mechanic garage, and it was a place next to a truck stop, so there were a lot of diesels being worked on there, and my dad and I were standing back just kind of watching people do their job and stuff and talking, and then all of a sudden I saw this vision, and it happened so fast, like, it was like boom, and I don't know how to explain it. It was like a movie, okay? And in this movie, this vision, I saw how there was a man that was fixing something underneath a diesel, okay, a truck, and it was on ramps, and somehow the ramps, I don't know what happened, but the diesel started to go backwards, so it was like this, so the guy was under it, and if, you know, it kept going, it would have crushed him, okay? So when I saw that, and it shook me up in spirit, and I'm like, and then I looked over, and there was the truck, and there was the man, and that happened, except the guy didn't get crushed, okay? What happened was, it started to roll, and I shouted, "Dad!" And then my dad ran, and he was shouting at people, and the guy's something on his shirt or something got stuck underneath the truck, and it was dragging him. So if it had gone 5 feet more, 3 feet more, 2 feet more, I mean, it was getting so close, he would have been crushed, because the ramp would have crushed him on the truck. You know, the truck would have crushed him on the ramp. So anyways, and when that happened, you know, they stopped it in time, you know, and the guy looked, and he was just like, thank you so much, you know, to my dad and the people that helped. And then I just kind of stood there, and I looked up at my dad, and he looked down at me, and he's like, that's amazing that you saw that just now. That's a miracle, Jack. And I was like, wow. And I tried to explain to him what had happened, how I saw a vision of it happening first, and Jesus showed me that that's how he was teaching me to listen and to be aware of his voice, and to really act in faith, okay, when these visions had happened. Because things like that happened to me throughout my whole life. Like, it could be like if I'm driving, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this part, at least, like, if you're driving, sometimes you'll get this feeling of like, slow down, because it could be like a deer getting ready to jump out in front of you, or maybe a car's getting ready to hit you that don't see you, and you just super naturally know, like, I need to slow down. I don't know why, but I'm gonna slow down. That's Jesus speaking into your conscience, and he's telling you, he's warning you. So, like, Jesus has done that so much with me, to where I almost hit deer, but because of his beautiful warning and his beautiful voice and love, I stopped. Like, I would slow down, and then that's happened so many times with cars that pull out in front of me, or even if I accidentally almost pulled out in front of someone, he would be like, "Stop, Jackie, stop, stop, stop." And I'm like, "Okay, what?" I don't know why. At the time I couldn't see, but I acted in faith. And then so Jesus taught me a lot about faith. Because things would it would just, things like that would happen a lot. Even as I was a child, like with my family, and we traveled a lot, and we went different places to go camping for several weeks out of the year. And just things would happen to where, like, my dad would be sensitive to Jesus, and he would hear, my dad would hear Jesus telling him to do something or to defend someone, or, like, for example, we were camping, and there was this woman who was getting basically beaten by this man, and my dad, everyone else around the camps, you know, like all the other camps, they were all looking, but they weren't doing anything about it. And this is back when, you know, before people carried guns and stuff around. But my dad was like, immediately said, "I need to go over there. The Lord's telling me to go over there and stick up for this woman." And he did. He went over there and he stuck up for her. And the guy was like, "Okay, man, okay, whatever. Be cool, be cool." And then he stopped, and then eventually he left. And my dad made sure that this man left so that he wouldn't hurt this woman anymore. So things like that would happen. Like, when I was a child, yeah, Jesus just would tell me things, and I would share things with my parents about certain things, and yeah, like, he was always doing that as a child. He's such a miracle. I love him so much. Basically, Jesus would warn me, like, he would tell me if kids were trying to get me in trouble. He would tell me to go one way if kids were going another way. Like, he would tell me not to be mean to kids, not bully them, and that kind of thing. And yeah, he would just show me how so few listened to him, and that that's what was different about me, like, as are all of his remnant children. But another example I want to give you, another miracle, is I was with a class in Colorado, and we went to the mountains. We were on a hike, and we were doing something there for, like, I don't know if it was for science or earth science or something. And, we split up in different groups, and my small group of like 3 people got lost. We got lost on a mountain in this little foresty land, and to me that may not sound like a big deal to most people, but to me as a child at the age of like 11 or 12, it's a big deal when you get lost, especially when your parents aren't there and you're just feeling like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to be found? Well, it was a few hours of fear, but Jesus told me, you will be found. You will be okay. So he comforted me during that time, and we were found, and we were okay. So just things like that happened a lot when I was a child. He was always looking out for me, and always looking out for my best interest. Okay, and then there was one time, this is horrible, and I hate to admit this, but it's true. I was 14 years old, and I got drunk, okay? And it's the first time I had ever gotten drunk. It was disgusting. And apparently I passed out, and I don't even remember passing out. I don't remember much about that night at all. And the girls that I was with said that I woke up and was vomiting all over myself, like I was laying on my back vomiting. So if they hadn't seen that, and if they hadn't woke me up, at least just to flip me on my side, you know, then I could have very well died in my own vomit. So Jesus saved me that night, and man, did he have compassion on me. Yeah, I remember that so much. And it was around the same time that I was looking for things to numb the pain that I was in at that moment, because I was in a very dysfunctional situation with like my family, and yeah, it was just hard. It was very difficult on me, and yeah, I would raid the cabinets in my mother's house, and there was hard liquor, and it was like really, really hard liquor, and first time I had ever had anything like that. This is another time, and I drank it. Don't even remember much of anything. And then I woke the next day sick as a dog, and Jesus basically told me I had just had like alcohol poisoning, and my older sister was taking care of me. She was a nurse, and she was taking care of me at her house, because that was like the safest place to be, you know, in that time. It was just very dysfunctional at my mother's, and so I remember my sister taking care of me, and she loved me perfectly the way that Jesus would lead her. Like, she was like doing this on my forehead and, you know, rubbing cloths on me and saying, "It's okay, Jack, you're gonna be okay." Because I was like, am I gonna die? Am I gonna die? You know, and she's like, "No, Jack, you're gonna be okay." And oh yeah, like, that was horrible. There were times when I would get drunk, and like later on when I had my license, you guys, and it's a miracle that I didn't kill somebody and myself, because there were times when I would get behind the wheel and like in the country roads and stuff, and that's still bad. Anyways, so like then there were times I would crash at my friends' houses, or, you know, whatever. We would end up in like the field, because we were like partying in a vacant building, and yeah, I was just wild and crazy, like absolutely crazy. I remember one time even riding on top of a blazer and that whipped around a corner, and I could have fallen off, but I held on for dear life, and I did fall off to the side, but I didn't fall all the way off. So like just stupid things like that. And I remember getting drunk like on the trestles, you know, where trains could have very well ran me over. I mean, just so many insane things, you guys. I did so many insane things. And the devil was really trying to destroy me, and me myself at that time really wasn't even, it's like I didn't care because I was in so much pain. Just from dysfunctional childhood and wounds that were on my heart, that I was like trying to drink it away, you know, and take drugs, and I would get high and, you know, smoke pot and all that stuff. So Satan really did tempt me a lot, and I gave in to a lot of the temptations back then. And I was living after the flesh, and I was very sinful and broken. I was just broken, man. I was broken. I needed love so bad. But anyways, yeah, there were times when Jesus would tell me, like in my spirit, as I was drunk, he would say, "Jackie, you need to stay awake." You know, it's almost like he was going, wake up, because I was starting to like doze off wherever I was, and he'd be like, stay awake, you need to stay awake. And he would sometimes tell me, go drink some milk, you know, like, I don't know if it was a full gallon, but it was maybe a half a gallon. Go drink a half a gallon of milk, go drink some water, you know, stay awake, it's important that you stay awake, you know, or else you can die of alcohol poisoning or whatever was going on at the time. And he always helped me. He helped me get to a place where I needed to be taken care of. Yeah, just, I did so many bad things, you guys, so many, but Jesus was there still helping me and looking out for me and wanting what was best for me. And I would feel him grieve, but there were so many times he saved me. He's a miracle, you guys. He saved me. There were so many things that Jesus saved me from. I came close to death so many times in this life, you guys, and I'll make more videos about that. But very quickly, like, just an example where he saved me, like, I got in a car wreck that rolled. I made a video about that, and I could have died, and Jesus held me up. His light surrounded me, and it was like a shield, like I was inside a bubble, and God let me know that he was there with me, because I cried out to him, and I was like, Jesus, Jesus. And yeah, the car was like flipped upside down, and the wheels were rolling, and it was smoking and stuff, and we had to kick our way out of the windows and just to get out of there. And it was horrible. Like, I was drinking with kids at the time. I was only like 14 or 15. I was just a passenger, but I was drinking and doing things I shouldn't be doing. Like, all night we were partying. It was so horrible. But anyways, yeah, so that's just an example of how he saved my life. Then there was another time when I was in emergency landing in a plane. The cockpit caught fire, and I also made a video about that. You can go watch it. And yeah, thankfully all of us were safe, but they had like the emergency you know, equipment and people on the ground ready for us to crash, because they really thought that we were gonna crash, because we were like going straight down. And one of the pilots passed out. There were two pilots, so like, yeah, one of them passed out. One guy was flying the plane, and as soon as it landed, thankfully it landed, I was crying out to Jesus the whole time. I was begging God, you know, give my life to you, get me off this plane, please God, save me. And right as soon as we landed, and the one pilot that was still like awake, he ended up kicking the door, and all the smoke rolled out, and then Me and another guy helped people off the plane because I was like seated in the number 1 seat where it was next to the emergency door, you know, the exit. That's one time. Oh, and then obviously like drugs and alcohol. Jesus freed me of all of that. Actually, in the beginning of my walk, when I repented and I became born again, that's what really rooted me. And Jesus was our walk together of healing and just with me being restored, because he took out alcohol and drugs out of my life, and I quit smoking then too. So like he healed my heart supernaturally in that moment. So like that's how I got so rooted in him, was because he was helping me and he was walking with me and being patient with me, and I was growing in his power and strength and confidence, and I got rooted in Jesus, you know. And yeah, and I gave him my heart 100%, and then I was born again. Some other things some miracles in my life of God is he would lead me to counsel people who were suicidal, and they would change their mind. Like that happened to me throughout my whole life. There were a couple people though who, one particular who did commit suicide. They wouldn't listen to reasoning at all, not from their loved ones or anybody. Yeah, like he would have me counsel kids and stuff. When I was a kid, like I would try and tell them that they have something to live for if they were depressed, because I was around a lot of depressed kids, because I myself was depressed and I was fighting suicidal thoughts too. So, and I had the visions of God and the knowledge of God and just the faith that I had in Jesus to help sustain me. So like I would try and put that in these people, you know. I'd be like, God loves you, don't do this, you know, he'll help you, and that kind of thing. So those are miracles that God performed in my life. When my family and I were on vacation at the Yellowstone National Park, Jesus would lead us, my husband and I, to help like random children who were lost in the crowds and stuff, because it's so busy there, you guys. Like these children would just come up to us, or he would show me like someone's lost, like this child, and I would just run over there and try and help them find their parents. So like Jesus would always put me in the path in that way to help people. My husband too, especially, like there's been so many times when women need help, like old women with something. It could be like their groceries or anything, you know. Like for example, there was this time when we were driving and this guy was hauling a bunch of stuff in the back of his truck, and it all just started to come out of the back of his truck in the street, and immediately my husband pulls over, not even thinking, you know. Like it would just come natural to him to help people. Doesn't matter like the circumstance. God leads him and he listens and he obeys. So I mean, there's just so many miracles that God does. And he's just so beautiful, you guys. I wish everybody knew Jesus. I wish everyone would reach out to him. And just even meeting my husband was a miracle in itself. God told me at the age of 8 that I would marry a man by the name of Paul, and I remember searching for him, and I met a couple Pauls that were younger boys, and I would be like, is it him, Jesus? You know, I would hope, you know, like, is this, did I finally find him, you know? And I would find out, nope, that's definitely not him. So that happened a couple times, and then finally I found my man, and he would talk to me when I was a child about my children. Like I saw my daughter, and then I saw my son, and Jesus, he told me, you know, he just let me know that I would have a girl first and then a boy. So these are just some miracles that God performed in my life, and I can't wait to make more videos because I love it. I love talking about all these things to give God glory and honor and praise. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless.